Hello guys, my name is Victor Bloodstone. Today I will be telling you guys about 5 true, creepy and disturbing horror stories of the Wailing Wells. So let's get started. Story 1. The Legend of the Wailing Well. It was a story we all grew up hearing in our small village. The Legend of the Wailing Well. As children, we were warned to stay away from the old stone well on the outskirts of town. But that only made us more curious. It was said that the spirit of a woman who had drowned herself in the well hundreds of years ago still haunted the place, her mournful cries heard every night at midnight. My name is Eliza, and one night, fueled by teenage bravado and the need to prove myself, I decided to face the legend head-on. Armed with a flashlight and my phone, I made my way to the well just before midnight. The air was thick with an eerie stillness, and the moon cast long, sinister shadows. As I approached the well, my heart pounded in my chest. The old stones were covered in moss, and the wooden cover creaked as I lifted it. I leaned over the edge, peering into the darkness below, but I couldn't see the bottom. I sat down next to the well, waiting for midnight to arrive. At exactly 12, the silence was shattered by a heart-wrenching wail that echoed up from the depths of the well. It was the most chilling sound I had ever heard. Filled with anguish and sorrow, I froze, unable to move. As the cries continued, suddenly, the air grew colder, and I felt a presence behind me. I turned slowly and saw a ghostly figure of a woman standing just a few feet away. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes empty voids, and her dress was soaked, as if she had just emerged from the well. She reached out a hand towards me, and I was routed to the spot, unable to scream or run. The wailing grew louder, more desperate, and I felt an overwhelming sadness wash over me. The ghost whispered something I couldn't understand, her voice blending with the wail. In a moment of sheer terror, I managed to break free from my paralysis and ran back home, not daring to look back. The wailing followed me all the way, echoing in my mind even after I slammed the door shut behind me. I never spoke of that night to anyone, but the memory haunts me to this day. The legend of the Wailing Well is no mere story. It is a dark reality, and the spirit of the woman who drowned there still cries out, trapped in her eternal sorrow. Story 2. The Unfinished Business. My name is Robert, and I work as a historian. I've always been fascinated by local legends and folklore, so when I heard about the Wailing Well, I knew I had to investigate. I wanted to uncover the truth behind the ghostly wails and perhaps bring peace to the tormented spirit. I arrived in the village with my equipment, ready to document my findings. The locals were wary and tried to dissuade me, but I was determined. I set up my camera and audio recorder next to the well and waited for midnight. At the stroke of 12, the wailing began. It was a sound that cut through the silence like a knife. Filled with despair, I recorded everything, my heart racing with a mix of fear and excitement. I asked questions, hoping to communicate with the spirit, but the wailing only grew louder. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and my breath became visible in the cold air. I turned to see a spectral figure of a woman standing by the well. She looked directly at me, her eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it made my heart ache. She spoke, her voice a soft whisper that I could barely hear over the wailing. She told me her name was Eleanor and that she had drowned herself in the well centuries ago. She was trapped, unable to move on because of unfinished business. Desperate to help, I asked her what she needed. She told me she had been wrongfully accused of a crime and wanted her name cleared. I promised to do everything in my power to help her, and as I made that vow, the wailing stopped, and the ghost vanished. I spent the next few months researching Eleanor's story. I uncovered old documents and records that proved her innocence. Armed with this evidence, I approached the village council, who finally acknowledged the truth. On the night that the council made their formal announcement, I returned to the well. At midnight, the wailing began, but this time it was different. It was softer, almost grateful. I felt a sense of peace wash over me, and when I looked up, I saw Eleanor's ghost one last time. She smiled and then disappeared, her spirit finally at rest. Story 3. The Skeptic's Encounter. I'm Jack, and I've always been a skeptic when it comes to ghosts and the supernatural. So when my friends dared me to spend a night at the Wailing Well, I accepted without hesitation, confident that I'd debunk the myth once and for all. I set up my tent near the well, equipped with a flashlight, some snacks, and a thick blanket. The night was cold and still, but I wasn't worried. As the hours ticked by, I kept myself entertained with stories of past debunked legends and myths. At midnight, the first wail pierced the air. It was a sound so haunting that it made my hair stand on end. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the tent, determined to find the source. The wailing grew louder, more desperate, and I felt an odd sensation in the pit of my stomach. I approached the well, and as I leaned over the edge, a freezing wind blew up from the depths, nearly knocking me off balance. The wailing intensified, and for the first time in my life, I felt true fear. I turned around and saw her, a ghostly figure of a woman, drenched in water, her eyes hollow and dark. She reached out towards me, and I stumbled back, my skepticism shattered. She spoke in a voice that seemed to come from all around me, telling me her tragic story of betrayal and heartbreak. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The ghost moved closer, her wailing filling my mind, drowning out all rational thought. I could feel her pain, her despair, and it was overwhelming. I collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I realized that some things are beyond explanation, beyond debunking. The wailing well was real, and the spirit trapped there was truly suffering. I left the well that night, my skepticism forever changed. I never told my friends what happened, but I've never been able to shake the memory of those mournful cries and the ghost who made me a believer. Story 4. The Curse of the Wailing Well. My name is Sarah, and I'm a journalist. I had heard stories about the Wailing Well and decided to write an article debunking the myth. I thought it would be an easy assignment, a chance to mock local superstitions and entertain my readers. I arrived at the village with a sense of arrogance, dismissing the warnings of the locals. I set up my equipment by the well, ready to capture the so-called ghost on camera. As midnight approached, I felt a growing sense of unease, but I brushed it off as nerves. When the wailing started, it was unlike anything I had ever heard. It was a sound of pure agony, echoing up from the well. My hands trembled as I held the camera, trying to focus on the source. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted, and my breath became visible in the cold air. I turned around and saw a ghostly woman standing behind me, her eyes filled with a sorrow so deep it made my heart ache. She reached out a hand, and I felt an overwhelming compulsion to follow her. She led me to the edge of the well and pointed down into the darkness. As I peered into the well, I saw visions of her life and her happiness, her betrayal, and her tragic end. I realized that she had been cursed, trapped in the well for eternity. Her wails were a plea for help, a desperate cry for someone to break the curse. Desperate to help, I began to research the well's history, uncovering ancient texts and forgotten legends. I discovered that the curse could only be broken by an act of true compassion and sacrifice. I knew what I had to do. I returned to the well, my heart heavy with resolve. I whispered words of comfort to the ghost, promising to end her suffering. Then, I took a deep breath and climbed into the well, feeling the cold, dark water rise around me. The wailing intensified, but I held on, determined to see it through. As the water closed over my head, I felt a sense of peace. The ghost's wails turned to whispers of gratitude, and I knew that the curse was finally broken. My last thought was of the ghost, now free to rest in peace. The villagers found my notes and published my article posthumously. They built a memorial by the well, a testament to the power of compassion and the importance of listening to the voices of the past. The wailing has stopped, but the memory of that night will forever haunt the village and those who dare to seek the truth. Story 5. The Forgotten Souls of the Wailing Well. My name is James, and I am an urban explorer with a penchant for the supernatural. When I heard about the Wailing Well, I knew I had to visit it. The stories of the ghostly cries intrigued me, and I hoped to capture evidence of the paranormal. Armed with my camera, recorder, and flashlight, I made my way to the well one chilly autumn night. The villagers had warned me, but I ignored their cautionary tales. As I approached the well, a sense of unease settled over me, but I shrugged it off, chalking it up to the eerie atmosphere. I set up my equipment and waited for midnight. The air grew colder, and the night seemed to hold its breath. At exactly 12, the wailing began. It was a sound that penetrated my very soul, filled with unimaginable sorrow and pain. I aimed my camera at the well, hoping to capture whatever was making the noise. Suddenly, the wailing stopped, replaced by a chilling silence. I scanned the area, my flashlight cutting through the darkness, and that's when I saw them. Dozens of ghostly figures emerging from the well. Each one looked like a shadow of a person, their faces etched with anguish. They surrounded me, their silent cries filling the air. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. One ghostly figure, a young girl, stepped forward. Her eyes, though hollow, seemed to bore into mine. She reached out and touched my hand, and a flood of memories that were not my own surged through me. I saw the girl's life. Her happiness turned to despair when she was falsely accused of witchcraft and thrown into the well. One by one, the other ghosts revealed their stories to me. Each one was a soul unjustly condemned, their lives cut short and their spirits trapped in eternal torment. Desperate to help, I promised them I would tell their stories, ensure their names were cleared and their memories honored. As I made that vow, the wailing returned, louder and more desperate than before. The ghosts began to fade, their cries echoing in my mind. I returned to the village, my heart heavy with the burden of their stories. I spent months researching, uncovering the dark history of the well and the injustices that had occurred. I published my findings, and the village held a memorial service for the lost souls. The wailing has since ceased, but the memory of those haunted eyes and their silent cries lingers. The well now stands as a reminder of the past, a testament to the need for justice and the importance of remembering those who have been wronged. Though their spirits are now at peace, their stories will forever haunt me, a constant reminder of the horrors that can lurk in even the quietest of places. If you liked the stories, then consider liking the video and subscribing my channel, as it would motivate me to make more videos for you guys, and thank you for watching this video.